ready? You want the noise brought on you? Because here it comes.
What?
The noise brought on you, because here it comes.
Just my job.
This is the Bob and Jeff Show, starring Bob Lutz.
How do I turn the dial on a show I'm on? I feel like I got nowhere to go.
Truth be told, a majority of the American people would ultimately empathize with our situation.
Jeff Lutz.
The reason there's no weaklings is because there's no stronglings.
Nature versus nurture. Nature always wins.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Everything you need to make it happen.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Monday edition, the Bob and Jeff Show, KFH Radio. We've been off for a little bit. The weather has gone hotter every day. Bob Lutz, Jeff Lutz here to co-host, Max Bauer producing engineering. We are in the West Wichita basement studio in a cool room. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
That's it?
Yep.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
So we're off to a rough start on a Monday.
What do you mean rough start? I'm okay. That's how I'm doing.
Just okay.
Just okay.
How's the, what are they saying out at Storm Team 12 about the oppressive heat?
Just that it's hot and going to stay hot for a little while, and who knows after that.
Yeah, we just got to get to the weekend. Sounds like it's going to ease up a little bit when we get to Saturday, so we'll see.
High 80s. College football begins Saturday.
Which is going to feel a lot better.
Yeah, we're thinking about heading out camping this weekend.
Really? Where are you headed?
Same place as last time.
Oh, nice. Relaxing for you.
Yeah, enjoy that.
Well, there you go.
We'll see how it goes.
And when do you leave on the big excursion to New York?
That'll be probably next Friday.
And that you'll be gone the entire following week.
Yes, that's correct.
So I got to get Duda involved in those shows. Starting on when?
9.
Leave on the first?
Yes.
Day or night? After the show?
Depends.
So on the 5th of September, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, we'll need co-hosts.
Yeah.
You'll be back for
the 11th.
The show on the 11th
yes.
of September. Well, there you go.
That I will, and I'll have a lot to say. Lots to share.
Well, we'll see.
If I don't do that already on the show before then.
We'll see how it goes.
I'll have a lot.
You know, it could be good. It could be very interesting. Is that the first show of this new tour?
Yes.
Well, we'll see what they do.
I was always going to go to the first show of the tour until they said it was in New York. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That's hard. Thought it'd be in like Charlotte or something. But they went to Madison Square Garden, and so I got to do it too.
Well, that's a good place to do your first show.
I'm excited.
869-1240, the IHOP hotline. I went out and saw the Wind Surge and the Springfield Cardinals. Wind Surge really took it to Springfield in that series. I did manage to see
the only
Springfield win. And outside of a couple guys, that Springfield team has nothing. And the Cardinals are in dire straits.
Well, it's their Double-A team. Do they have any? They called Mason Wynn up. They've got a lot of young players already in the big leagues.
I know that, but I am hopeful that Victor Scott II is as good as I think he's going to be.
Well, you already know he's going to run and play defense. So he's got two of the quote-unquote 5 tools already checked off.
I think he's Vince Coleman with probably not the base stealing capacity, although he runs like the wind.
What does he have, like 80
but
steals?
A better hitter. I think he's outstanding. I love watching. I watched him and throw the ball in the outfield between innings. He's got a cannon. And I love Thomas Sagesi as well.
Sagesi, you got to get that right.
Whatever his name is.
Got to spell it right. You haven't been doing that. You got to say it right.
S-A-G-G-E-S-E.
S-A-G-E-S-S-E.
No, I don't think that's right.
It is.
No, I don't think so.
It is.
No.
He's come through twice and with two different teams.
He pounds the baseball.
Well, he hit for the cycle in the game you were at. Were you still there when he hit the double?
Yes, of course I was. I left in the 9th.
You want to see him finish it off.
So 2 guys out of that entire roster excite me. Tink Hence, of course, but I didn't see him.
Well, he shouldn't really excite you at this point.
Why?
He's just okay right now. He hasn't pitched a lot of innings. He fades after the first couple.
They'll build him up. He'll be okay. We'll see.
He's a slim, slight guy.
Well,
Gotta bulk
whatever.
up.
He'll get there.
We don't know that.
He'll get there. Trust me on that.
Oh, because your pitching development is just...
Yeah, I'm hopeful he'll get there. Most of the people involved in baseball think he will.
Well,
So we'll see.
we shall see.
Can't count it before it happens. But your team's on a steep decline as well. So you got nothing.
I got nothing.
Right.
Got Ramon Laureano and Cole Calhoun hitting the middle of the order, which is fun.
Which is odd. No, that can't be fun.
It's kind of fun. It was fun. It's not that fun anymore. Nobody can hit. Josh Naylor's hurt. It's all bad.
Why didn't you keep Richie Palacios?
Because he's not good. Trust me.
He made a great play yesterday.
Yeah, he'll provide a little energy for a week or two, and then you trust me on this.
Got a 900 OPS at AAA. We'll see.
Yeah, okay.
We'll see. He could be a fourth or fifth outfielder next year.
Perhaps.
That's all you want. You're not expecting him to be a mainstay. You're just wanting to build some depth. The guy can run a little bit. You know, that's how good teams get built.
Well, I hope it works out for you. It wasn't going to work out for Richie in Cleveland, so we wish him and his goggles the best.
Well, we'll see what happens. Lots of football to talk about. We're starting our Big 12 previews today. It gets a little tougher with 14 teams. I've got 8 booked already this week.
Nice work.
That is nice work.
Well, we don't have a show
You know what?
Wednesday, so
Yeah, I understand that.
okay.
That's why I said I got 8.
Well, you could have
2 a day.
7, or you could have 9. It doesn't really matter.
But that is nice work. And that's what our program director was talking about last week when I visited him.
Oh, that's cool. What else did he
You
say?
do all the work, was basically what he said.
Great.
Why are we paying Jeff?
Well, it looks like we still are, so as long as that keeps going, I should be fine.
But it took some effort to find these folks. So
Finding
today,
folks
Ryan
takes
Aber from the Daily Oklahoman will join us to talk OU. That's coming up at 2:25. At 2:45, we'll interview comedian Craig Ferguson, who will be at the Orpheum Theater tomorrow night for a performance at 8 o'clock, part of his ongoing tour. And at 3:25, Justin Williams from The Athletic. He covers Cincinnati Bearcats sports. And, of course, Cincinnati, one of the 4 new teams in the Big 12. We'll get Justin Williams, his perspective on Cincinnati, which should be a very good addition to the Big 12 football ranks, although they do have to replace an outstanding head coach.
Yeah, and doesn't look like they're going to be that good this year. Is this the first year without Luke Fickell? I thought
It is the first year without Luke Fickell.
Okay, I thought maybe he was gone after the big year that they had getting to the CFP, but I guess he lasted another year.
Well, now you got me doubting.
Well, I think you're wrong.
I think you're wrong. Check it out.
He went to the Big Ten, right? Wisconsin?
Yeah, after last year.
That might be right. I think it is right, but let's check and make sure.
I don't know why you got to sow doubt in
I'm not
everybody's
sowing
mind.
doubt, but it just seems like
people are already looking out. When's Bob going to start to lose it? When Bob? I can't tell you how many times.
Yeah, he was at Cincinnati from 2016 through 2022. So,
well,
there
that's
you
what
have
I
it.
said. Until you came along.
Luke Fickell's going to do good things at Wisconsin.
Well, we'll see. I don't watch a lot of Wisconsin football.
Well, maybe you should. They've been good for most of your life.
They have been good. Clay Cundiff, one of our guys from Wichita Bishop Carroll, went up there, but he's no longer going to play. Injuries have gotten the best of Clay Cundiff, and we send our best out to him. I know that isn't an easy call for a young guy to say, I just can't do it anymore.
No, it's tough, and yeah, we're glad that he was able to experience a little Division I football, and we're sure he'll make good things of his life post-football, right?
When you go off on
Enjoy
those
Clay
tangents,
Cundiff.
it's really fun to listen to.
Love Clay Cundiff.
You couldn't be more uncomfortable.
No, I love Clay Cundiff.
You couldn't be more uncomfortable trying to talk, trying to improvise.
Wonderful human being.
Just trying to, like today. Let's break this down.
What are we doing?
Aren't you so glad that I get now? Listen, we recorded our interview with Craig Ferguson. Well, I'm not gonna lie, but aren't you so glad I get to break the ice on those things?
No, I could break the
What
ice
would you
just
say?
fine. What's up, Craig?
You would.
Yeah. I'm not
I
intimidated by
had something great to say to him. He enjoyed it.
He gave you a courtesy laugh.
Well, but I thought it out.
Yeah, but
What am I going to say to Craig Ferguson to kind of bring him into the fold, to kind of get him loosened up, to kind
he's
of
Craig Ferguson.
get him talking?
He doesn't need your help.
And I came up with something great. Would you at least admit it?
No, I will not.
You will not admit it.
Well, I'm just tired of you thinking these professional comedians are going to find you
they
funny.
love me.
They don't care. They forgot about you just as soon as you hung up.
He's probably hung up and said, if I get sick tomorrow night, maybe I can get him to replace me.
Yeah, good luck with that.
What would I couldn't put together an act.
Of course not.
On a 1 day notice.
On
Give me a month,
5-year
maybe.
notice.
What about a month? What about a month?
What about a year?
I think I could do it.
No, you couldn't. Write a joke.
I don't know. I'm more of a.
You have till the end of the week to write a joke that you could tell.
I'm like
on
a lot of
stage.
comedians, and I'm an observational comedian.
Well, observe some stuff and write
went
it
on
down.
a day trip with my friend Wayne, my friends Wayne and Maggie, Friday, and we had the car was. There was so much laughter. You would have thought. I don't know. It
What was so funny?
We're just funny people.
All right.
Whereas when you take this trip to New York, I don't know. Will you have some laughter?
Of course. There'll be all kinds of laughter. I'm hilarious.
Are you?
Yes.
When's that going to come through?
I think for the last 35 years or so it has.
Maybe
Maybe a minute or two, but I got there by kindergarten.
So we do have football this weekend on Saturday, college football. Is there any game that will pique your interest enough to tune in? I'll give you the 7 games.
One of my friends up in the Lawrence or the Riverfront Stadium press box, his name is Jason. He's a big Notre Dame fan, so he's been talking up that game with Navy.
Well, that's a good game.
They should crush Navy.
They're playing that game in Dublin, and that's probably the marquee game. You've got UTEP Jacksonville State. You've got UMass New Mexico State. That's the one showing on ESPN Saturday. You've got Ohio San Diego State. That's an interesting game.
I don't know. I don't know if it is or not.
That's kind of an interesting
I think Ohio
game.
is terrible, but I might be wrong.
Somewhat of an interesting game. You've got Hawaii and Vanderbilt playing in Nashville. That's fascinating to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Just I like those kinds of games that you'd never think about. You've got San Jose State playing USC in the Coliseum. And finally, you have Florida International taking on Louisiana Tech.
Well, the short answer to your question would be no.
You won't watch any of those games.
When is, I don't know if I have NBC still.
I don't have it with DirecTV. I don't know what's going on Channel 3.
It's been gone for a long time, hasn't it?
Oh, I can't. What? You know what? I need to know that. What's going on?
Well, it's negotiations.
Well, get it done.
I don't know how that works.
I need someone from Channel 3 to call me and tell me if there's been any movement.
Is that a Channel 3
Because
thing?
in the summer I don't need Channel. No offense, Channel 3, but I'm okay.
Well, you have Peacock.
Yeah, but I can't. I like to watch, the local stuff at times.
Okay.
Not
well, then,
their-
yeah, I have.
Am I allowed to watch their local
no,
newscast?
Of course not. Actually, yeah, Channel 3's fine. But not that often. So I guess I can watch Notre Dame on Peacock. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it'll be on Peacock. So
Yeah.
we'll get to watch it there. But I'm looking forward to college football starting. I always like the build-up to college football week to week, almost as much as I like the actual games.
You do like circling games on the calendar,
I do.
whether they're meaningful or not.
I do like that. And then the following week, we have games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday in college football over the Labor Day weekend. That's where it gets really crazy. The highlight game, LSU, Florida State, in a matchup on the 3rd, September 3rd, two top 8 teams nationally in the preseason poll. I'll watch that one.
That's a huge game.
That is a big
A lot
game.
of implications for that one.
Well, I'm very curious to find out about Florida State because they're kind of pumping their chests right now, like we're too good for the ACC. Let's
Well,
see
they
what
probably are if the
let's-
ACC is crumbling.
Let's see what they do against LSU. We'll get an indication.
Well, they don't. LSU
They
is
want to
pretty
be
good
in the
too.
SEC. We'll see. How are you going to stand up to the Bayou Tigers?
Bayou Bengals is what you're going for.
Tigers, the LSU
I
Tigers.
know, but the nickname is the Bayou Bengals.
I'll call them Tigers, the Bayou Tigers.
Bio?
Yeah, Bayou Tigers.
You struggle sometimes.
Why do you say that?
I don't know. Why do you?
Why do you point that out?
It's just funny.
I got to do most of the talking here on this show.
No, you don't.
Well, yes, I do.
No, you don't.
I bet if they took an accounting of the words said
Yeah,
between
because
you
you
and me.
interrupt me all the time. You don't let me talk.
Okay, you got the floor.
No, that's not how it works. I don't just take the floor when there's just random topics. But if we're having a back and forth about something, sure, I'd be happy to speak a little bit longer on some topics like Clay Cundiff. What do you want to know?
What do you know about Clay Cundiff?
Wonderful.
Did you ever talk to him?
No.
Who's he related to? What
Gary Cundiff.
What legend? Yes, that's his father, former Shocker basketball player. What football legend is Clay Cundiff?
John
related?
Riggins.
Wrong. He's the grandson of Eddie Crewell.
That's pretty cool. Good
Yeah.
I think I knew that.
Yeah, well, you didn't know it when I asked you.
Yeah, because Sarah, there you go. I got it all.
You didn't know it when I asked you.
Well, it took me a minute.
So, yeah. That's
They played at Bishop Carroll under the Great Dusty Trail.
I think that's right, although Alan Shuckman may have been there for part of
might
that
have.
journey.
Yeah.
And next week on the show, besides talking Big 12 football, we'll start to get into high school football. Because that, my friends, is just around the corner.
That does start next Friday.
A week from Friday, we've
Thursday,
got
too,
high
we got
school
some
football
games.
games. It's crazy. And here they're out there trying to practice in ridiculous heat.
Well, they're practicing early in the morning.
Early in the morning, but you got to do something in the afternoon. I hope they're doing it responsibly and as much
I don't
indoors.
think they're
as
allowed. I think one of the temperatures, I don't know. There's some rules out there that maybe they're not even allowed to go outside.
Well, I hope they all take that into account. I hope they follow all the rules.
I'm sure they will. No one wants the youngsters to get ill or...
No, nobody wants that. But very short amount of time to prepare. But these folks now are running weights and 7-on-7. They're fine.
They'll be ready.
They're all good. Do we have Northwest Bishop Carroll right out of the chute again this
You know
year?
we do.
Do we?
Yes.
How do you know that?
I just know it. I've been working on high school football stuff over at Channel 12.
Really?
Yeah.
What have you learned?
Not much. I'm just kind of building a database of information, like a little resource guide to have. So when I go into work on Fridays, I can have everything kind of at the ready, go get my scores.
Are you working Friday evenings? Is that
Probably.
my understanding?
Yeah. I might go in Saturday mornings or at least do some work from home on keeping statistics updated. I'm only doing Wichita area stuff, but still a lot.
Well, what is Wichita area? Anything in the KWCH viewing?
No, like what the Wichita area was for the Eagle.
So the AVCTL,
Yeah,
Central Plains, Central Kansas
South
League.
Central borders. Yeah,
You'll get enough.
we have plenty.
You'll get enough covered. All right, Max Power, our producer engineer. We're going to take a break, come back and talk OU football. This will be our last Oklahoma football preview as they obviously head to the SEC after this year. Ryan Aber, beat writer from the Daily Oklahoman down in Oklahoma City, will join us next.
On Florida's Space Coast, we think you can have the best of both worlds. Kind of like right now. Driving, at your desk, maybe at the gym, but you're also grooving to some music. Visit us and you'll go to the beach and see a rocket launch. Or go kayaking and manatee spotting. It's all waiting for you on the only beach that doubles as a launch pad. Plan your adventure today at visitspacecoast.com.
This is the Bob and Jeff Show on 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Ups and Downs, the musical theme for this week. Max Power picking the music. The Foundations, Build Me Up Buttercup. Great tune. We are joined by Ryan Aber from the Daily Oklahoman. He covers Oklahoma athletics. We're going to talk some OU football here on the show. Ryan, hello, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on this afternoon. How are y'all doing?
Oh, you bet. We love having you on. It's football season, even though it's 1,000,000 degrees out right now. So Oklahoma had an atypical season, to say the least, last year. The rebuild begins. There's hope. They are ranked 20th in the AP preseason poll. Are they worthy of that ranking, and what do they have to do to maybe even be better than that?
Yeah, I think certainly they've got a chance to be worthy of that ranking. It's hard to, picture just how things will go with the rebuild that they've done, especially on the defensive side. A lot of new faces in the transfer portal, which gives you a chance to rebuild maybe a little bit quicker than you could in the past. But at the same time, you never quite know how all of that's going to come together. And then on the offensive side, there's a lot of bright spots. You like what the offensive line looks like, even though they lost a first and a third rounder at the tackle spots. It looks like they could have a chance to be more physical in those positions. And then at running back with Javonte Barnes and even Gavin Sawchuk, who didn't play a ton last year, but were solid coming back. Dylan Gabriel at quarterback. But, again, some more questions over there, especially at wide receiver, who outside of Jalil Farouk and Drake Stoops are going to be playmakers at the receiver spot. So I think this is as big of a swing between best case and worst case scenario that I can remember, at least on my time during the OU beat. But the schedule gives them a chance to be better record-wise, significantly better record-wise, even if they're a similar team than they were a year ago, because they don't have to play Kansas State, a team that's sort of been a thorn in their side. They don't have to play Texas Tech, who has given them some issues, Baylor. So the schedule's pretty forgiving for them, and then their non-conference schedule with Georgia being taken out thanks to their move to the SEC next year became a lot easier as well. So a pretty wide variety of where things could go both positively and negatively with this team.
Yeah, you mentioned the defense, not just one of the worst in the Big 12 last year, but one of the worst in the country, and that's obviously a surprise for a Brent Venables team. So would you say that was schematic? Was that coaching? Was that personnel? And after all they've done in the transfer portal to address that, do they feel that as though it will be improved just based on personnel, or have they made other adjustments too?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was personnel for them last year. One, that they were largely working with a group of players brought in to play Alex Grinch's defense and not Brent Venables' defense, and there was a lot of adjustment to that, most notably with Deshaun White in that cheater role, which is sort of a hybrid linebacker and defensive back spot, and nobody that they really had fit well into that, but sort of did the best he could there. And then depth at several positions wasn't what they would have liked. Linebackers had to play, 90 to 95% of the snaps last year. And that's just unsustainable when you're trying to do the things that you've got to do to be successful defensively in the Big 12, and then looking forward even next year to that move to the SEC where things take an even bigger step. So they feel a lot better about the depth that they've got this year, both with some of the freshmen that they added, and most notably Peyton Bowen in the secondary, the 5-star recruit who wound up choosing them over Oregon at the last minute, sort of even after signing day last year. And then all of the additions that they've made in the portal with Reggie Pearson at safety, but especially in the defensive line when they had Rondell Bothroyd from Wake Forest, Trace Ford from Oklahoma State, who has had some really bright moments. His question has just been, can he stay healthy or not? Davin Sears from Texas State and Jacob Lacey from Notre Dame, and a couple of even newer options with Dejon Terry from Tennessee. So they've got added a lot of bodies there, but a lot of bodies that outside of Bothroyd and Trace Ford are largely unproven at this level.
Ryan Aber, our guest, beat writer for the Daily Oklahoman, covers Oklahoma athletics. As we all know, this is a football program that has had enormous star power. It's not quite that way right now. The AP released its preseason All-America team, first and second. There are no Oklahoma players on that list. I can't imagine that's been the case very often over the past 50 years or so. Are you? What do you think about Brent Venables and his recruiting? Is that star power going to come back?
It certainly looks that way. They've been recruiting better. I mentioned Peyton Bowen there earlier. They've got a couple of similar type guys defensively in next year's class. Now, where they really need to take a big step forward is on the defensive line, and they've been a little bit better, but I think they need to be even better than they've been. If they're able to get David Stone, ultimately that would be a big get for them in improving that defensive line. Missed out on Williams Nwaneri, the kid from the Kansas City area that committed to Missouri, was a tough loss for them. But generally, recruiting hasn't been an issue. Now, I think at this point, though, they've got to start showing success on the field to be able to sustain that recruiting success, because it becomes a lot more difficult to sell recruits if you can't point to recent success. And they've been able to point to the success of Clemson and other programs where their assistant coaches have been, but it's getting to the point where they're going to have to point out their own success. And if they're not able to turn a corner this year, I think recruiting momentum can slow down really quick.
So we know Dillon Gabriel at quarterback is solid, maybe not spectacular. We also know that last time Oklahoma turned to a freshman in the middle of the season, it started to change the trajectory of that season. And then Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley left for USC. So how safe is Dillon Gabriel with Jackson Arnold, the Gatorade National Player of the Year, behind him? And will they want to give Jackson Arnold some looks there just as they go into the SEC next year?
Yeah, I think you will see Jackson Arnold a little bit. Now, I think they much prefer it if he played a couple of times in those first three games, and then you just sort of put him in a glass case as a break in case of emergency type thing. But I think Dillon Gabriel is pretty solid there. He clearly wasn't the kind of star player that OU has gotten used to at quarterback, but virtually nobody's going to be with the success that they've had at that position over the last decade or so. But there are things certainly that they would like Dillon Gabriel to clear up. I think ideally for them, they would like to ease Jackson Arnold into things, be able to preserve that red shirt, and have Dillon Gabriel improve a little bit in those late game situations and make a little bit better decisions there, but still roll with them. But Jackson Arnold is a really nice option to have if they wind up needing him. Last year when Gabriel went down against TCU, it was a lot of duct tape and chicken wire trying to keep that position together with how they used Braden Willis and Eric Gray and Marvin Mims and a lot of non-quarterbacks to play quarterback in that 49-0 loss to Texas. They wouldn't be in that position this year because they feel a whole lot better about what Jackson Arnold brings. But if things do go south early in the season, I don't think there's any doubt you're going to start hearing chants of, we want Jackson among the OU fans. We heard it a few years ago with when Spencer Rattler struggled. It wound up working out pretty good with him with Caleb Williams. Now, I think Dylan Gabriel's a better quarterback now than Spencer Rattler was then, but Jackson Arnold certainly has the kind of potential to be a Caleb Williams type difference maker. They would just prefer it to be down the line and make that transition next year to the SEC with him starting quarterback and not this year.
Ryan Aber, our guest from the Daily Oklahoman. We're talking Oklahoma football as we begin Big 12 previews. And I'm sure you've been asked this question a million times, but Bedlam is such a huge thing in college football, even though Oklahoma has dominated it. That final Bedlam game will happen on November 4th in Stillwater. If I want a ticket for that, what do I need to do?
You better start saving about 5 years ago. I think it's going to be a really hot ticket there in Stillwater. And, heck, they sold out their season tickets for the first time in quite a while. At one point, they had bundled the Bedlam ticket where you had to buy a season ticket to get that, and they still hadn't been able to reach that level. They reached that level this year, and I think there's a lot of fervor for that game. Obviously, Oklahoma State's a team in a little bit of a transition itself, but they're going to be fired up for that game in Stillwater for sure, and who knows when we're going to see it again. So I think you're only going to see ticket prices for that go up and up, especially if OU and OSU are successful, because I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to want to get themselves into the stands for that matchup.
You got your feet in Oklahoma every day. What is the general mood of Oklahoma State fans when it comes to this move by Oklahoma? Of course, it's been in the works for a long time. It's on the cusp of happening. But what is the mood? Why is that game have such fervor?
Well, I think it started off as OSU fans were, there's a lot of trepidation there with what was going to happen. Would OSU be able to land in a power conference? How would things shake out there when all the cards finish falling? But now that OSU is in a Big 12 that looks, in a really good position to be competitive moving forward with not only the 4 new additions this year, but the new additions coming aboard from the Pac-12 next year, I think it's one of, I'm not quite going to say good riddance, but there's a lot of OSU fans who feel, really good about where they stand, and they're not going to lose a lot of sleep over not being able to play OU every year. I think ultimately that series will be revived somewhere, somehow. I don't know if it'll wind up being able to be an annual thing, but I think it's going to happen at some point. But certainly the mood has changed among Oklahoma State fans, where I think they're a lot more content with the way things have fallen out now than they were a couple of years ago when we first found out this thing, and it looked like maybe the Big 12 could cease to exist. Now the Big 12 is, in a pretty good position behind the SEC and the Big 10, obviously, and significantly behind, but still in solid position to thrive long-term moving forward. And they feel a whole lot better about things than they did back then.
A much softer landing. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, you mentioned the schedule, and OU doesn't play Kansas State, Texas Tech, or Baylor. So just how difficult will it be not only to evaluate Oklahoma, but the entire Big 12 as the season goes along, when there's not really much balance to the schedule?
Yeah, it's going to be weird. One of the big selling points of the Big 12 the last few years has been that, one true champion motto, and talked about playing the round robin and how that helped determine a pretty clear winner. That won't be the case this year. I think certainly that Big 12 championship game takes on a little bit different significance now, just because you're going to see teams that haven't played the same group of opponents, and you're going to have to evaluate in a different kind of way. It's going to be interesting because, we talked about OU's schedule. It's fairly light. You've got a Cincinnati team that's in a big transition. You've got, Central Florida going through a little bit of transition themselves and making that leap up to the Big 12 level. BYU, and then some of the other teams that they play in the Big 12, maybe not ones that you expect to finish at the top. And then in the non-conference side, you've got Arkansas State, Tulsa, and SMU there, so they don't have that marquee non-conference game. So there's certainly evaluation when you talk about not only OU and some of the other ones, but really the league across the board is going to be a lot more difficult this year. But, all the other leagues find a way to do it themselves. So, we'll see how everything shakes out there at the end. But I think certainly in OU's case, it's a positive for them maybe to build a little bit of momentum and potentially get them back into the Big 12 championship game for a final time before they make that leap next year.
All right, good stuff talking Oklahoma football. Before I let you go, I got to mention something professionally. Two friends of mine, especially Barry Trammell, but also Jenny Carlson, leaving the newspaper business, leaving the Daily Oklahoman, starting some other venture. That's big news in your state.
Yeah, it really is, and it was really weird being in our Monday morning meeting this morning without those two. And those two have set the standard for the Oklahoman, for just personally, they sort of set the culture in our newsroom, and not just in the sports department, but period. And been such a big part of. I mean, heck, Barry Trammell's the reason why I became a sports writer, reading him growing up, and it was a great honor to work next to both of them. They are fantastic writers, but even better people. And I know that sort of gets overused, but if it applies to anybody, it applies to those two. And I really hope that this new venture turns out well for them, because they both deserve an incredible amount of success. And they've been such a big part of my career growing up, and also making the Oklahoman what it's been. And we're going to, find a way to move on and have success without those two. But certainly it's going to be strange not sitting next to those guys day in and day out, because they are both fantastic at what they do and who they are.
Very nice, Ryan. Thank you for your time. We'll talk to you down the line.
Sounds great. Always enjoy it. Thank you all for having me on.
You bet. Ryan Aber from the Daily Oklahoman, our first of how many teams we got now? 14 Big 12 football previews. We'll preview Cincinnati later in the show. So a 1958 game-worn Mickey Mantle jersey was auctioned off, and it sold for
$4.7 million.
You looked at you found the story.
I didn't.
Of course you did.
No, I did not. Is that what it is?
Yes.
I swear on
You
everything.
saw the story.
I did not.
$4.68 million.
Okay, I did not.
You saw the story.
No, I didn't.
We are thrilled to have Craig Ferguson as our next guest. He'll be performing at the Orpheum Theater tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. A few tickets still available. You need to get down and see Mr. Ferguson, who I have difficulty, Craig, and first of all, welcome to the show. I have difficulty really identifying you. You are all over the place, books, movies, television. I guess I'd call you a comedic entrepreneur. Is that a good description?
Yeah, you could call me that, or you could call me something a little less flattering, maybe some kind of showbiz grifter, or an immigrant taking jobs that Americans don't want. I don't know what it is, but it's all, for me, it's all part of the same thing. But the bottom line is stand-up comedy. That was where I started, and that's what my thing is. It's kind of like, if you learn to play the violin, or the fiddle, you go and you play it, and then you play with an orchestra, or you'll maybe compose some music, or you'll maybe, play in a band, or maybe you'll write a score for a movie. But really what you do is you play a fiddle. That's what you do, and that's what I do. And I do stand-up. That's my thing.
Yeah, so I'm always intrigued by the comedians who will come to Wichita. We don't get all of them, but we get several big names, and I'm just curious how your talk show and everything else that you've done have helped you appeal to Middle America, and what kind of experiences you've had in front of Midwestern audiences in the past.
I think that the Midwestern audiences are kind of like they're kind of like Midwestern people. Is like they're polite, but they ain't stupid, and that's a mistake I think a lot of people make in the Midwest. I love it. It's always, I mean, Wichita has always been a regular stop for me on tours, and I'm going up through Kansas City and all over, and go to Iowa and Des Moines and Iowa City and Des Moines. I always make sure I do the Midwest. That's it's America.
Talking with Craig Ferguson again at the Orpheum Theater. He will be performing tomorrow night, the 22nd, at 8 o'clock. So you really you really got on my radar when you were on the Drew Carey Show. I'm sure that's not the first time you've heard that. Do you view that as your biggest breakthrough of your career, or was it later when you got your own late-night talk show?
I think both of these things were kind of a gear change, you know? I mean, it's like when you get to work, the Drew Carey Show, which was in the 90s, was, I mean, I love doing that, and I'm still friends with most of the cast of that show and still see each other and stuff, and it was a great time, and that was a kind of boom time for sitcoms as well. I mean, the internet was kind of in its infancy, and people still watched network TV in a way that they kind of don't anymore. And then the late night show was just a different animal, you know. I mean, that was like getting a rocket tied to your butt, you know. I mean, it takes off and you go where it's going. So it was they were both gear changes. Breakthrough, yeah, I suppose they were, both of them.
Yeah, for sure. So I saw a print interview that you've done recently, and it was before a stop on your tour, and you talked about, well, something will come up. So, you know, how much of your performance is just kind of a riff and talking about whatever comes to your mind, and how much is quote-unquote material?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a hybrid, because the reason I love stand-up is because it is an organic one-off thing. That's why I love live stand-up comedy. So, you know, I'll give you an example. The other night, I'm doing a show somewhere in Colorado, and about 10 minutes into the show, a very nice old lady walked up the front of the stage, past security, and not that there was that much security, but she walked up and she handed me a photograph of my own dog that she'd printed out from the internet. And it's like, well, thank you so much, sweetheart, for that picture of my own dog. I've got some pictures of my own dog, but you can't have too many. And then, of course, the thing is that event turns into a whole running joke for that evening. Now, I'm never going to do that dog bit again, but that's what happens that night. And stand-up for me, you know, live stand-up is like that in the sense that it will always only exist in that place in that evening, and that's why I love it most of all. Right now, people see a lot of stand-up, you know, in little clips on TikTok or YouTube and stuff like that, and I think that's a pretty good way to do it, because they just watch little bits. You know, for me, if you're going to watch a whole stand-up show, I mean, I'm on stage for nearly 2 hours. So in order to do that, you kind of have to be there. You don't want to watch it on your TV. You want to be there. I mean, I've made stand-up specials, and they're okay, but it's much better to be in the room.
Talking with comedian Craig Ferguson. He'll be at the Orpheum tomorrow night. So your years of doing the Late Show, and you did that for a long time. I've always been curious. I've never spoken to anybody who hosted a network late-night show, so you're the first person I'm going to ask this question of. Were there guests that you knew would be hot and guests that you knew that wouldn't be?
You know, in the sense of, would they be able to have a conversation and hang out and be relaxed? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm thinking specifically of Don Rickles, who seemed to love being on your show.
It's because he was my friend. I loved Don so much. You know, the first time, you know, it was a big honor for me when I got to meet Don, and he's a huge legend in American comedy, just in American show business. And you wouldn't meet a sweeter man. You know, you just couldn't meet a sweeter man. All that, you know, the kind of acerbic nature of his stand-up was not who he was in his life. He was such a sweet man. And him and Barbara, his wife, came to my house. The first time they came at a dinner party at my house, he got to my house, and I opened the door. He gave me $1, and he said, "Look, I want you to put that towards getting a better house." And I said, I think that guy, I don't know if everyone responds to that, but to me, I loved him so much. So when he was on the show, he would, he'd have a go at me, but I could also have a go at him because he knew I loved him. And so I always knew it was fine. So a lot of people who came on the old show became friends of mine. Robin Williams was a friend of mine. Carrie Fisher was a friend of mine. Angela Kinsey is still a friend of mine. They're people become, you meet people at work, and some of them you become friends with, and some of them you don't.
Yeah, definitely. So, you hear a lot of veteran, quote-unquote, comedians these days talking about what you can't say and you can't talk about this. You don't seem like you would ever have that complaint or that problem. So for you personally, what has kind of been the biggest adjustment in the stand-up world over the last 30 years or so? How have you had to kind of grow and evolve with the times?
I don't worry too much about what you can and can't say. I think that, I always, the criteria I always had for comedy is, does it make me laugh? Obviously attitudes change over time, and, there are things that do that, but I don't really get overly concerned about that. The only one big change that I have done, that I have made personally, is that about 6 or 7 years ago, I made a stylistic choice to not do any political humor at all. None. Absolutely zero. No politics, no politicians mentioned, no position taken in a political environment. And the reason I did that really was more because I wanted to experiment with it, because everyone else seemed to be, heading in a different direction. And I have a friend, a good friend, he's a good stand-up, Jim Gaffigan, and you know Jim, right? Jim made a stylistic choice that he would never cuss during the show. Now, that's a stylistic. Now, I know Jim cusses as much as anybody else cusses in their life, but he made a stylistic choice, and he gave himself a challenge to do stand-up without doing that, which I thought was interesting. So I thought I would do the same myself with politics. How do you make it funny? How do you make it engaging and current and right now and most of all funny, but not do politics? Because I got kind of sick of it.
So, Craig, I know my dad has one more question, but I just wanted to sort of thank you, I guess, in a way, for the show The Hustler, because that was one of those post-pandemic shows. I don't know why it wasn't picked up, but for me personally, it got me through some times where I was getting a little lonely during that pandemic. I watched that show every week, and I thought you were great on it. I thought it was a great concept. I don't know if with the writer's strike and everything, if that would ever come back, but I enjoyed that show.
Well, thank you, Angelo. We actually shot it during the pandemic, so it was a very, very tricky show to do. Everybody had to be tested all the time, and there were a lot of medical staff around. We were doing it, but I like doing that show. And yeah, you never know with a show. They come and go. If there's one thing I know about show business, you just never know what's coming next.
Yep.
So, and we're again talking with Craig Ferguson. The final question: You obviously came to America from Scotland and hit it big as a comedian. But I think recently you've moved, in the last few years, you've moved back to Scotland. Did you do that to avoid hurricanes?
No, because anyone who moves to Scotland for the weather is a damn fool. No, what I'm in Scotland a lot of the time, but I actually spend a lot of the time in the United States as well. I have a place in New York, and I'm there a lot of the time. So, I'm lucky enough to have a place in Scotland. But, if you talk to the IRS, they will assure you every year they come right to me, and I'm still an American.
Well, I made that reference to hurricanes because I believe you were headquartered in Los Angeles for a while, certainly.
I was. I was there 23 years.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we appreciate it. Yeah, before you leave, tell us a little bit about your show. What should people look forward to?
Well, look, I think what you can look forward to is this. I'll be there. You'll be there. I can't promise any more than that. I'm not going to talk about any political stuff. So if you want that, there's plenty of other places to get it. But other than that, I'll be there.
Well, we really appreciate your time. Best of luck on your tour, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Speak to you soon.